Welcome to Wellywood Wargaming, where the grim dark never sleeps. Crack open a bottle of wild snake and spark up a low stick as we take a journey down Underhive. Hello there. Recently, I took a passionate deep dive into Necromunda 1995 versus modern Necromunda. And let me tell you, the comment section of that particular video went off like a bunch of delac at a ghast harvest. In something akin to the Marmite versus Vegemite debate, it was completely split down the middle. Half of you swear by the classic game of 1995, the raw, chaotic, scant and unbalanced beauty of it all, while the other half preferred the tactical depth and sandbox of limitless customization of the new breed of Necromunda. So that got me thinking, why not both? What if we could take the best elements from each of these editions of Necromunda, smush them together, and create something that plays smoother, keeps the grimdark soul of the original, and fixes the biggest problems in both versions? Right, so as far as I'm concerned, and from what I've gathered from the comments section in that video, it seems the general consensus is that the core rules of modern Necromunda, so N17 if you want to call it, are an overall improvement, and it is a fantastic game all round. That said, there is something missing from new Necromunda, and that is the soul and vibe of the original 95 version. It was more brutal, tougher, and it didn't feel like paramilitary outfits going at it in an all-out arms race. So if we're to do this, we need a foundation, and like it or not, modern Necromunda 2017 onwards is the best place to start. The core mechanics are simply better, more tactical, more interactive, and way more flexible. So here's what we're keeping from the modern edition of Necromunda. Alternative activation. No more I go, you go. Alternating actions make for a way more cinematic and tactical experience, and I think generally this is the biggest improvement on the original all round from a mechanical perspective. Secondly, the injury dice. Flesh wounds, serious injuries, and skull outs. It keeps things tense without being too punishing. The way that flesh wounds stack and take toughness down as you go adds a lot more depth and an improvement on the original, if you ask me. Number 3, tactics cards. Yeah, they're divisive, but they add an extra layer of unpredictability and storytelling to the game. Just don't spam the broken ones and keep it random. I suggest a deck of 10 and draw maybe 2 at random in each game. Number 4, weapon traits and unique items. The depth of modern gear options is something the old edition never had. We've also got gang-specific gear that really makes each gang feel more unique, so we're keeping that. Number 5, the gangs and factions. Escher, Goliath, Enforcers, Outlaws, the sheer variety of gangs now is miles ahead of the old days, minus of course Scabbies, Ratskins and Pit Slaves, which we can easily port over on another video by the way. Scenarios. The sheer volume of interesting scenarios mean that you will never run out of ways to play the game, and every game will be different, so we're keeping these. So that's the base, the core rules from the modern version of Necromunda generally, but that doesn't mean we aren't making big changes. Time to bring back some classic Necromunda spiciness. Let's talk creds, because modern Necromunda's economy is busted. Creds in modern Necromunda are far too easy to come by for a bunch of ragtag underhivers. It's never quite felt right for me. Rewards and income credits snowball far too fast, and by mid-campaign, some gangs are swimming in high-powered gear, while others are stuck with stub guns and bad attitudes. So, we're fixing it by bringing back the classic income system from Necromunda 95. In 95, it was only gangers who had to work the turf, not leaders, not champions, not juves or prospects. Collecting income was a ganger's responsibility. Gangers actually had to work the turf, and this can only be done if they are not in recovery or what's now known as convalescence. This just makes a lot of sense to me. You would delegate to the gangers in your crew. You wouldn't do it yourself as a leader. You'd also have a maximum of 10 territories that you'd be able to generate income from per battle as well. So if you had 20 territories at some point in the campaign, heaven forbid, you could only get income from those 10. Also, gang maintenance. Bigger gangs pay more upkeep. There is also a giant killer bonus, so if you beat a gang with a higher rating, you get bonus credits too. Now, it makes sense that you need to give your gang members food, clothing, and shelter. A look at the old income table from N95 here. It's pretty ruthless, but I really love the fact that you had less money in it. It just made it feel far more like the actual underhive. Say, for example, here you earn a 230 to 299 credits, but you have a gang of, say, 13 to 15 guys. You'll get 75 credits. It's harsh, but I like it. This forces actual tough choices. Do you hire more fighters and risk losing your profits, or do you keep a lean elite gang to minimize upkeep? While this does suck a bit for the hoardy gangs like Cawdor or Chaos Helot Cults, it feels thematic and right for the setting. So let's talk about XP. Modern Necromunda has two ways of leveling up fighters depending on the type of fighter, whether it's a Juve, a leader, or a ganger. Modern Necromunda lets you pick skills and choose how to advance for leaders and champs, which sounds great until you realize that everybody just picks the strongest combos and the same meta builds appear in every campaign. Really, it's very predictable that everyone's going to be taking Nerves of Steel if they're playing Goliath, so on and so forth. So for Ultimate Necromunda, we're bringing back random XP based advancements for all fighters. So the new old XP system. Fighters earn XP and rank up more naturally instead of fixed roles. They all start with a certain number of XP too, based on how experienced they are when you hire them, which to me made much more sense. Why would a leader be as green as a Juve? You still gain XP for taking enemies out of action and for taking part, but also every fighter gets D6 XP each game too, and I feel more XP in general leads to more good times overall. The emphasis on creds in modern Necromunda far surpasses the emphasis on XP, and it needs to be the other way round for a more immersive experience. So instead of free skill picks, skills are also entirely random. You will roll on the table that you have chosen at random from the 6 available skills. I like this. You might get a substandard skill, you might get something good. The randomness is really something that adds a lot of flavor to it. You can see from the old advanced table here that rolling nipples or boxcars gives you a chosen skill if you're really, really lucky. However, if you roll a 3 to 4 or a 10 to 11, you get a random skill, but from a chosen skill set. So I like the way this is done here. Occasionally you will be able to pick your own skill. It's worth noting here the omission of the mental stats. They didn't exist in N95, so we would have to update this with the sort of cool leadership, willpower, and intelligence in here as well. Juves to gangers progression as well. Promotion happens organically as fighters climb that ladder of promotion. A look at the starting XP in N95 here. A Juve starts with no starting XP points. A ganger starts with 20 plus 1d6, so you can get a maximum of 26 to start with. A heavy, or champion should I say, starts with 60 plus 1d6, as does a leader. This just means no more min-maxing in terms of skills and advancements. You level up, you roll the dice, and you deal with the hand you're dealt by the Holy Emperor, like a true hive scum. More random, more good. As an arbitrator, you ever notice how 2 players in your campaigns will always pick the most agreeable 3 or 4 scenarios out of the hundreds, or indeed the ones that bring in the most creds? That is boring. Let's roll for it and be brutal with our choices. Also, a cap on winnings is definitely something to consider here, or even remove entirely if the winner is already claiming a territory. Now, every fight is a surprise. You might think that you're getting into a simple gang fight, but suddenly the roof caves in and you're scrambling for cover. The trading post is cool and all, but it gives too much access to rare weapons too fast. So here's my own fix based on N95, but brought in line with N17. So the new trading rules here. You can send a leader or a champion to the trading post, but first you must roll a D3 to see how many items you are being offered. Then we roll a D6 and consult a table to see which type of items you will get. So what you must do next is choose 3 items from that category. Say, for example, you rolled for basic weapons here. You'll choose 3 basic weapons and then roll another D3 to see which one you actually get access to, and up the cost of that item by another D3 times 10 credits. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is what you get. No more guaranteed plasma spam. Now you work with what you can actually find. Also, just throwing this out here, bolt guns are exceptionally good weapons, and they were special weapons in N95. So we are going to make them special weapons again in this Ultimate Necromunda here. In terms of common items from the trading post, you can buy these at any time. Now let's talk about gang composition rules. We're going to bring this back to N95 in total. However, in place of the word heavy, I'm changing this to champion. So you must firstly have a minimum of 3 fighters in your gang. You must have 1 leader, and you can have up to 2 champions. That's it. Never more than 2 champions. No more than half of the gang may be Juves, and every single fighter in your gang gets a free fighting knife. Paying 10-15 credits for a knife always seemed wrong for me. The next thing is a maximum, an absolute maximum of 2 heavy or special weapons per gang. This may feel like it deliberately hurts some gangs, but I feel it's necessary to be able to bring back the feel of Necromunda champs and leaders being the only ones with access to such amazing gear. There are exceptions to this, of course. Enforcers can have a number of bolt guns as basic weapons, for example. I would add that, of course, long rifles are available as basic weapons to nomads, but generally speaking, a maximum of up to 2 heavy weapons or special weapons. Another thing I like about modern Necromunda is the rep system. I do like it. And the way that it dictates how renowned your gang is and all that comes with it, including rules around alliances, house favors, agents, brutes, and hangers-on, etc. But this doesn't have to be included. I would say that all this stuff is great for more storytelling in Necromunda, and as long as all the players are on the same page, I think this is a good inclusion, so let's keep rep. A bone of contention for some people here, we have 2 sort of core mechanics, and I think you can make these into actions with the new game here. One is Overwatch and one is hiding. These were both actions that any fighter could perform in N95, and I love them both, honestly. The only problem is the redundancy of the Overwatch skill in this case, if allowed. If I were to bring back the Overwatch as it was before, I would make it a double action to do so, and here's how I would word it. Any fighter may choose to surrender their activation and go on Overwatch at the start of their turn. A fighter on Overwatch may make a free shoot basic action with any pistol, basic, or special weapon as soon as an enemy fighter declares a move action. The shot is made at -1 to hit. Adding an extra -1 to hit in there does take the edge off, and of course, if you are shot at and pinned while you're on Overwatch, you will lose that Overwatch. So there is a strong caveat to this, but I think it's nice having every gang being able to do this, and it does make for a slightly more realistic style of play. The next one is the hiding mechanic. Now there is a similar sort of modern version of this, but it's not exactly the same. Hiding, I would make a basic, and I'd bring it back from Necromunda 95 here as follows. Fighters may choose to hide if behind heavy cover. The fighter may not be targeted by ranged attacks at all while in hiding, and may not make ranged attacks either. I think that's cool. It's nice. You can still get charged if you're in hiding, but effectively you're out of the game for a turn. In terms of the campaign systems for modern Necromunda, many of these could be converted into this Ultimate Necromunda rule set. Dominion is the most obvious link to the original, but instead of just having a settlement and gaining territory after that, starting with a random handful for all is a nicer way to do things while keeping the flavor of the original. You'll still gain and lose territory, but not quite as often with the old rules. Another thing I'd have a look at is the difference in adjusting the gang rating. What used to happen with gang rating is we included the amount of XP points in the sort of tally of the total gang rating. I like this. It makes more sense to me than just having a set amount for the increase of each. I think just having the sort of different XP and counting it all up and adding it to your gang rating is a nicer way of doing things. However, you can't do this in Yak Tribe at the moment. So here it is, my Ultimate Necromunda, a mix of modern mechanics and old school brutality. But what do you think? What would you add? Drop your thoughts in the comments and let's build the perfect Necromunda together.